Yo, what's up, everyone? This is Terry, bringing another show here. We're going to be talking Ohio State versus Notre Dame today. I'm super excited about this matchup. Can't wait for it. Um, if you have any questions or anything, obviously get in the comments. Let me know, what you think, or if you have any questions. Like I said, what I want to do is get into position by position which team I think has the advantage. Excuse my voice. I'm a little under the weather, but I'm excited about this week, so I had to do a show. Wanted to get after it. So let's get into it here. Like I said, player by player, position by position. I want to look at these two teams and see which team has the advantage. Um, I went back this morning and I watched the Notre Dame versus NC State game. Obviously, that was the game where they played a pretty good competition, and they struggled for like three quarters. They ended up pulling away late, which a lot of that actually came from. Oh, here actually, sorry. Let me fix my mic here. Sorry about that. If the audio was bad. But anyway, getting back into what I was saying, um, Notre Dame struggled until pretty late in the game. And what actually turned it around was NC State's quarterback making some mistakes, and their wide receiver actually had a ball that hit him right in his hands. He was kind of wide open, and it ended up going to the Notre Dame defender behind him. So yeah, I mean, again, that game turned around late, but what's up, Mike? What's up, man? I know I just stopped in the middle of a sentence here. I'm getting used to being live. It's my second time ever. All right, so again, let's get into it here. The first thing that I wanted to talk about was the quarterback position, the one that everybody talks about. Obviously, Notre Dame has a quarterback who's been in college for like 7 years or something like that. He's been here for a while. He played at Wake Forest and he was really good down there, and transferred into Notre Dame. Um, they're a team that's always kind of like a quarterback away from being really good. So that's why I do think this team is really good. Just looking at Sam Hartman, he has 1,061 yards so far, 13 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 11.8 yards per attempt, which is a really good amount. So let me see here. Looking at Kyle McCord, 815 yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 10.7 yards per attempt. Obviously, there was the Ohio State quarterback battle, but I think looking at that position, the advantage is going to go to Notre Dame just because simple experience. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that in this game, Sam Hartman is going to be better than Kyle McCord, because Kyle McCord has steadily gotten better week after week this year. And again, I've kind of been critical of Ohio State's offense this year, of what they're asking Kyle McCord to do. But I think in this game, some of the stuff that Ohio State's been doing this year, like throwing the ball to the flats and things like that, I think that those are things that are actually going to work really well in this game, which we'll get into some of that later on, like what I think the biggest advantages are going to be. So that's 1-0 Notre Dame. Now moving on to the running backs. Um, Now, this one I may have kind of a fan take. If you look at the stats, um, the top running back on Notre Dame's team, excuse me, is Audric Estime. He's got 8.3 yards per carry. The top back on Ohio State's team right now is Travion Henderson with 6.4 yards per carry. Now, the difference in these two running backs, though, is Audric Estime has over double the amount of attempts that Travion Henderson has, which I know that doesn't really factor into yards per carry, but a lot more attempts, you have a chance to break some, which he has. Audric Estime is like a big running back, which I think that's going to kind of play as a disadvantage for Notre Dame, because usually Ohio State, especially with under Jim Knowles, doesn't really let big running backs that are not super fast get off on them. Usually those smaller, shiftier backs are going to have a better chance to get around the linebackers and get a big play. But I got Ohio State as the advantage at running back just simply because of potential. I think that the guys that Ohio State has on their team are just simply better. Again, you know, the Notre Dame running backs have better stats, but I think that maybe that has something to do with the offensive line, which that's going to bring us to our next position group. Ohio State, their offensive line is new, three new starters. They're still gelling, but they have gotten better every single week. I also think the competition on the opponent's defensive front has gotten worse every single week. So I think that the Ohio State offensive line is still a wild card. But with Notre Dame, they actually have two offensive tackles that are potential first round picks. I mean, again, as far as like the interior, I think Ohio State has the advantage on the interior. But overall, with the offensive line, I'm going to give it to Notre Dame, just because their offensive tackles are proven and they are that good. And I mean, again, that doesn't mean Ohio State's offensive line is going to do worse in this game, because I think, like I said, I'll get into a little bit later. One of the biggest advantages in this game is going to be Ohio State's defensive line against Notre Dame's offensive line. All right, so let's move on from that here. Moving on to the next position, I have tight ends. Um, I didn't dig too much into this one, but I think that it's very equal. I have these as an equal match. I think Ohio State has two good tight ends with Kate Stover and G. Scott. Notre Dame also has two pretty solid tight ends, and I really don't think that either one of those, I don't think that either one of those teams have a major advantage with tight end. I know last year Notre Dame had Michael Mayer, which he was a big advantage for them. Ohio State did a good job defending him, but I don't think they have a player like that on their team this year. And with the way that Ohio State's secondary has been playing, I don't think they have a big advantage in the tight end front. And again, guys, I know I'm kind of moving fast through these positions here. If you have any questions or anything like that, if you disagree with me, let me know in the chat. That way, we can kind of get some conversation going here. The next position group and the last one that on offense is going to be the wide receiver group. Now, this is the most obvious one. Ohio State has the advantage. They're going to have the advantage because Ohio State's going to have the wide receiver advantage over pretty much any team that they play in the whole country with, Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, Julian Fleming, and Carnell Tate. There's no team that has four guys that good. There may be a team that has one guy, that you can maybe compare to Marv or Emeka, but they're not going to have two of those guys on the same team and then, Carnell Tate and Julian Fleming coming as the third and fourth guys. There was an interesting note. I know Notre Dame actually has, they spread the ball around a lot with their wide receivers. So it looks like they have guys on their team with 8 catches, 12 catches, and 10 catches this year, which, and even after that, they have guys with like 7, things like that. I mean, again, they're spreading the ball around, but what that tells me also is that they don't have like a number one wide receiver who is going to come out here and put 100 yards on you. Another interesting fact: everybody likes to talk about Notre Dame and their team speed. I follow this page on Twitter that does like analytics, and they do a lot of like speed stuff. Who was the fastest guys of the week in college football? Notre Dame actually had a wide receiver on there this week. They had a guy. His name is Tobias Merriweather. He's actually one of the guys who was not, like I said, the 8, 12, and 10 catches. He actually has less. He has like 5. But he ran over 21 miles per hour, and the guy, he's also big. He reminded me of like kind of a Benjamin Victor type guy running down the field. He's a lanky guy. So, I mean, that he could create a mismatch, but I mean, Ohio State's secondary is really good this year. So, I don't really see that happening. All right, moving to the defense. This is where I think Ohio State actually has the biggest advantage. Is a lot of these defensive positions, I think the Ohio State's just simply better. They have better athletes, and Jim Knowles does a lot with his defense, where when I watch Notre Dame, it doesn't really look like they do a lot. They kind of just line their guys up and read and react, and I think that it's going to cause some issues with Ryan Day's offensive game plan. Or, excuse me, Ryan Day's offensive game plan is going to cause their defense some issues. All right, so the D-line, I did it overall as one unit, but I just wanted to dig into it and talk about it a little bit. So I think Ohio State actually has a huge advantage on this front. Looking at Notre Dame's defensive line, they don't look twitchy. Their interior guys don't really do much. They try to take on double teams, but I mean, they're not, again, they're not really twitchy. They're not making plays in the backfield. They're not getting past the offensive, guards in the center. Whereas I think Ohio State, their defensive tackles are twitchy. You have Tyleik Williams, Mike Hall, even Ty Hamilton in the run game. I really think that the interior of Ohio State's defensive line could be the difference in this game. But, when we move on to like the edges, it's again with Notre Dame, you just don't notice any twitch. You don't notice any guys out there that look like they're going to be a problem, even for Ohio State's young, inexperienced offensive line. Whereas when you move over to Ohio State, the edges is something that a lot of people have talked about, and a lot of people have been concerned about. But I've been the one, or not the one, but I've been one of the people who the whole entire time I'm saying no. These guys are freaky. These guys are making plays. They're doing what they're supposed to do, and I believe that. And I think that in this game, the edges are going to show up big time. I think that you can see multiple sacks from guys like JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry. I think those guys are really going to be getting after the quarterback, because the one thing that I noticed that tells me that is Sam Hartman likes to hold on to the football and let guys get downfield. And I mean, he can move around a little bit in the pocket, but he's not twitchy. He's not someone who's going to be able to run away from those guys. So yeah, again, I think that that's going to be one of the biggest advantages is Ohio State's defensive line really getting after Sam Hartman, and really shutting down the run game too. Yo, what's up, Mark? What's up, brother? All right, yeah. Like I said, if you guys got any questions, put them in the chat. If you think I'm wrong about something, let me know. If I'm right, let me know. All right, moving on to from the defensive line, moving on to the linebacker units. I have Ohio State with the advantage here. I mean, I may be biased on this. Notre Dame's linebackers look okay, but the one thing I noticed with them is that they do a ton of reading and reacting, and it's kind of slow. Like I actually just sent a message in my Ohio State group chat a little bit ago saying that if Ryan Day sticks to the run game in this game, we should easily be able to run for over 200 yards on them, because their defensive line is not really a threat to stop the run. And then, the way that their linebackers react to the run, I think that gives our offensive line that extra split second that they need to get off of one block and onto another one. And I really think that Travion Henderson and Chip Trayanum could have a huge day in this game. As long as Ryan Day doesn't abandon the run, which I really don't think he's going to. I think a lot of Ryan Day abandoning the run has to do with the quarterback that he has. Like if you remember with Justin Fields, he would not really abandon the run too much. But when C.J. Stroud was out there, that was like Ryan Day's MO. He would abandon the run all the time. And, again, honestly, I feel like it cost us some games. But we also had C.J. Stroud, who generational arm talent. So, and the wide receivers that we had. So you can't really blame him too much. But in some of those games where our offense stalled, looking at like the Michigan game and the Georgia game, I do think that we could have tried to run the ball more, especially late in those games to get the offense going. Let's see. Got Mike in the chat. Chip and mine will eat them up. Man, Mike, brother, what's your beef with Trey, bro? Trey's been the best running back on this team this year. I know Chip is amazing, and I really like Chip because to me, he puts me in mind. I talked about this on my show yesterday. Chip puts me in mind of great Ohio State running backs of the past. So when you see him run like that run he had against Western Kentucky, where he was one cut right through the middle and he was gone and nobody could catch him, that reminded me of like a Carlos Hyde, Ezekiel Elliott type run, and or even Beanie Wells. Beanie Wells had a lot of runs like that. I mean, it's not really the way that our run style is set up right now. So I mean, I think that may not benefit him. But I don't understand the beef that people have with Trey. Man, Trey has been a dog. He's been, his vision is good. Like if you watch the All 22 film, he's hitting holes and he's hitting the right cuts almost every time. Let me see, Mike. Says I have no beef with Trey, but think about what Chop did last year to Notre Dame. No, you're right about that. But and Mayan definitely got the run game going last year against Notre Dame, and that ultimately is what won Ohio State the game. The only problem I have with that, though, is that Mayan doesn't really look healthy this year. I haven't seen that tenacity from him and that like meanness from him that he usually has. So again, I mean, if he's back to healthy, then absolutely let's get him out there and wear them guys down. But if he's not, then I think you got to go with Trey and Chip. And I think that Trey's speed is a game changer, especially against a defense like this, because if those linebackers do what they did against NC State and take too long to react to the play, Trey's gonna run right past him and be gone. I like the conversation. Yes, and yeah, I agree with you guys. Again, you both of you guys, my dude Mark and my dude Mike, talking about Chip Trayanum could be the game changer. I really do agree with you on that. I think Trey could too, But I think if you get Chip out there, he's gonna cause some problems for this Notre Dame defense because he's got the strength of Mayan Williams and the speed of Travion Henderson. So I mean, I hope that they give him a lot of carries in this game and let him kind of get off on this team. All right, I'm gonna move on to the next position here. We just talked about the linebackers. I mean, I just think that Tommy Eichenberg is too much of a difference maker for to give that advantage to Notre Dame. I'm reading the chat while I'm in the middle of talking. Sorry about that. All right, so yeah, I think Tommy Eichenberg is too much of a difference maker to give that advantage to Notre Dame. So I'm going to go ahead and give that to Ohio State. Let me see here. Oh, I said that he has the strength of Mayan Williams. I feel like um, Chip has the strength of Mayan and the speed of Trey. That's what I was saying. If I said the wrong name, my bad. All right, so moving on to the safeties. Um, Let me see here. I have this one as equal. So I have Ohio State and Notre Dame safeties is equal. I mean, I don't think that either one of them has a guy who is just like um, I just is like a great player, automatic first round pick. Ohio State has Josh Proctor and Latham Ransom. And then Notre Dame, I mean, again, I don't even know their safeties' names. I didn't do too much digging into it. I just know that watching the game, their safeties are not making crazy plays. I know that one of their safeties is like in the top four of their leading tacklers, which is probably a concern. If you remember back in 2021, Ronnie Hickman led Ohio State in tackles, which was a really bad thing for Ohio State's defense because that means that the running back was getting to the safety every single play or most of the plays. And I think that that's one of the issues that Notre Dame is going to have in this game. Again, I have it as a washout, but I think that with the play style of Notre Dame and the wide receivers that they have, Ohio State safeties are going to be just fine in this game. Let's see. I think we got Brody in the chat with a bold prediction, maybe. Steele, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 3 interceptions. You're saying he's going to have all that in this game, Brody? That's funny. Nah, dude, come on, Mike. Trey is not strong as mine, bro. Trey gets arm tackled too much. That's the thing I hate about him. If he could break tackles at the rate that he should be able to with how athletic he is, he might be the best back in the country. All right, so moving on, the last position group I have here is the corners. I have this one as equal too. I struggled with this one because I want to, as an Ohio State fan, I want to hype up Ohio State's corners this year because they've been playing phenomenal. But Notre Dame has really good corners too. I think that's actually the strongest unit on this Notre Dame team is their secondary, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing playing against Ohio State because even though it is their strongest unit, I don't necessarily think that they're going to be able to stop Ohio State's wide receivers. I think that Ohio State's wide receivers are just that good. And the way that Ryan Day's scheming the offense up this year, he's making it really hard on secondaries because it's not just, guard your guy with help over top. He's got guys moving around and you're having to change your coverage, 1 second before the snap because you got a guy shifting across the whole formation. A couple guys I did want to mention talking about the corners. Benjamin Morris at Notre Dame. I think he's a true sophomore. I could be wrong about that. I didn't look, but I think he's a true sophomore. And he's been a really good player. I think he's actually projected to be a first round pick, which again, I mean, you never know. I'm gonna look up and see if he's a sophomore. But anyway, Benjamin Morris has been kind of locked down all year. He's not really letting guys get by him, and he is a problem out there. But if you match him up with Marv, I mean, I don't know. I've seen Marv sex up basically every single good cornerback that he's played against. I just don't know if Kyle McCord is going to be willing to throw into a window of where Marv can get open against a future NFL cornerback, and that's what worries me about this offense the most. I've been critical of it because a lot of people were excited. People seen, we tore up Western Kentucky, and they're like, oh, the offensive problems are gone, the team is back. Which I believe that some. I think that the team has gotten better as they go on. They definitely ramped up the intensity. But the one thing from Kyle McCord that I haven't seen is I haven't seen him really make window throws. Only a couple, and again, I've seen him kind of hold on to the ball when he probably should have thrown it. So that does worry me a little bit, but again, I expect Marv to do his thing. And then the last thing on the corner is obviously just Denzel Burke. I mean, I made a tweet in like the summertime saying that I think Denzel Burke is going to be the best corner in the Big Ten. I think that he's he's living up to that hype. And I love what I'm seeing out of him. I really think that he is just a shutdown corner this year. I don't think that this is just the opponents that they played against. Like no, the tenacity that he's playing with is something that it doesn't. You don't just turn that on and turn that off. I think that that's just who Denzel Burke is now, and I'm loving that from him. Let's see what's in the chat. Brody says OSU is better at everything but quarterback and O line. I think that kind of matches up with what I said, Brody. I had a couple positions where I had them equal, like tight end, corner, and safety. But I mean, OSU could have the advantage there. It's hard for me to tell, just from watching the Notre Dame game where the advantages are. So I'm gonna move on from that. The last thing I wanted to talk about here wasn't gonna be a long show. I just wanted to talk about what I think the biggest advantages are going to be in this game. Excuse me. Which units on each team I think could cause a problem and could actually be the difference makers in the game. So the first thing I talked about earlier, Ohio State's defensive line. I really think that the defensive line is going to cause problems. Watching that NC State game, their defensive line was giving Notre Dame's offensive line problems, and I think that Ohio State potentially has the best defensive line in the country. If not, it's definitely probably top 5. A lot of teams want to claim that their defensive line is the best in the country, but I don't think that many people have the interior guys that Ohio State has. I mean, I think that if you look back at the Georgia teams from the last 2 years, the biggest advantage they had was their interior defensive line was the best in the country, and I think that that's probably Ohio State this year. But we'll see. I think that Mike Hall, having a big game in the Notre Dame game last year and being quick and twitched up, I think that he's gonna like blow right past Notre Dame's offensive guards. They really look kind of slow, and I don't know. I really think Mike Hall is gonna cause problems this game. And then for Notre Dame, I have their secondary, which I just talked about. Watching the NC State game, you can clearly see that that's the best unit on their defense. NC State did not have guys running wide open, and whenever they did, it was because their quarterback was extending plays and guys were getting open, which I don't know if we're going to see that much from Kyle McCord. So we'll see how it plays out. But I do think that Ryan Day will be able to scheme around this, and he'll be able to get guys open with motions and different route concepts. So I'm actually that's all I have on the topic for today. I think that this is actually going to be like a low scoring game, something that a lot of people I've seen predictions all over the internet. People are like, oh, 42-35 and whatever, 38-31. I'm not going to give my score prediction today, but I don't think either team scores 30 points in this game. If a team does score 30, I think it'll be Ohio State. Maybe that's a little biased, but I think that if Ryan Day really schemes them up and sticks to the run game, I think Ohio State could score 30. But I don't really see Notre Dame scoring 30 on this Ohio State team. The only way I see that happening is if we have a bunch of turnovers, which if that happens, then you never know what's going to happen in the game. I don't expect Kyle McCord to have a bunch of turnovers, or like we don't really fumble the ball too much. But you never know. Obviously, this team is still young and they're still gelling, and Kyle McCord is still a very fresh quarterback. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up here, though. Leave a like. Hit the subscribe button. Obviously, if you guys want to find me on Twitter, CFB_stop. But other than that, peace out, guys. Thanks for coming. Have a good day.